Yo, what's going on, guys? I'm Illsounz. Welcome to the Making Fire Melody series. This is going to be a multi-part video series where I basically go over the concepts and constructs so you can start making fire melodies. Some of this stuff is going to be basic. Some of you guys, most of you guys might already know this, but I want to make sure that I'm covering all grounds. Even if you do know it, we can still review it. You may have forgotten something, or you still may just learn something overall. So even if it's a basic video that I do, just make sure that you check it out and watch it. Other than that, I'm going to show you how to make some fire melodies. So let's get into it. So in this video, we're going to talk about specifically scales, why they're important. We're going to talk about how to use scales and what scales are in general. So what is a scale? A scale is essentially a pattern of notes that are categorized by frequency or sound, which gives you the ability to have different types of scales, which we'll get into in a bit. So we're gonna start with the easy stuff. Let's start with a C major scale. So let's go over here to FL Studio and let's open up this piano right quick. You know what I'm saying? So C5, which I'm gonna play on the piano. You have C right here. If we play the C major scale, it would sound something like this. So it would sound a little bit something like that. Now, how is that a major scale? And how do is it the same for all the other keys? Yes, it's the same. So there's a couple different ways that you can make a scale, but I advise you to learn it like this. So that way you can start to get a better fundamental basis. So that way you can do more advanced stuff. That's the whole reason I'm doing this series and multiple videos, is because it's one concept that adds on to the next, that adds on to the next. Kind of like math class, you know, you start with algebra, then you go to algebra 2, then geometry, then trigonometry, calculus. It's all in steps and orders because you have to have certain stuff before you move on to the next step. So we're starting with the easy stuff. So I'm gonna show you how to make a major and minor scale. And a major scale, what you can do is follow this whole step, half step pattern that applies for all major scales. Now, what are whole steps and half steps? If we look at the piano roll here, if I start on C, if I go to the next note, to up in this case, it's to the right for me, but in your guys' case, if I go to the next note up, it would be C sharp, also known as D flat, because that's an accidental. The next would be D, then D sharp, E flat, then E, then F, then F sharp, G flat, then A, so on and so forth. So when you move to the next note, that is what's called a half step. So we're going half a step up, half a step up, half a step up. If you go the other way, you're going half a step down. So half a step down, half a step down, half a step down. Now, a whole step, if you put 2 and 2 together, is 2 half steps. So if you go a whole step over, you need to go 1 half step, then another half step. So from C to D, that's a whole step. From D to E, that's a whole step because we went half step, half step. If we go from E to F sharp, that's a whole step because we're going half step, half step. Make sense? So those are whole steps and half steps. In a major scale, you can make, for a major scale, you can make any note you choose a major scale by playing, starting with your note, and you go whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. So you have 2 whole steps, then a half step, then you have 3 whole steps, then a half step. Now for a minor scale, you're gonna start on your note. All the same concepts still apply. The only thing that changes is the whole step, half step pattern. So now we start on our note, which is C, then we go whole step, right? Then we go half step, then we go whole step, then whole step, then half step, then whole step, and then whole step. You see, so it's a little bit different. We're gonna do it one more time because I know minor is a little bit more advanced. We're gonna do it one more time. So start on C, C, right? And we're gonna go whole step, half step, right? And we're gonna go whole step, half step, and then whole step, and whole step to get back to C again. So I would recommend writing this down somewhere. WWH, you know, W representing whole step, H representing half step, whatever the case may be. And that is how you make a major or minor scale of any note. Why are scales so important? Why am I starting with scales? Because scales are going to give you the ability to play things like this. So essentially what I did right there is I played some chords, which we're going to get to in the video, and I threw in some movement in those chords. But the freestyling stuff that I did up here, that is me just playing scales. And that is the power of scales and why you need to learn your scales. If you use FL Studio, I'm going to show you 2 ways that you can make scales and yeah, be locked to scales. I know some of you guys aren't piano players. I understand that, and so I want to make sure that I'm catering to everybody. I play piano myself, but I also use these techniques too when I'm making beats. There is no right and or wrong way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in a sampler here. I'm going to go into the sampler piano roll. We're going to click this button right up here, right? And then we're going to go down to melodic scales, not melodic chords. We're going to go to melodic scales, and we're going to pick major, okay? And once you pick major, you're going to just select the key, right? So that's C. I'm going to pick C. And what it's going to do is FL Studio is going to fill in the scale of that note that you pick in the scale that you picked, which in this case is a major scale. What I like to do sometimes is duplicate this. You could do that by holding Shift on the keyboard and then left clicking and dragging. And once you drag it, you can let go of Shift so you can freely move it and then just take it to the next C. So all I'm doing is just taking the scale and I'm starting it on C of each octave. That's all I'm doing. So you're just gonna do this for the entire thing right here. Yep. Okay, boom. So now we have the whole scale filled out. This starts on C down here and this ends on B, which is the last note in the C major scale. So you can use this whole scale. Sometimes you might start on, like, I don't know, D sharp or something right here, right? And then you're just gonna have a couple notes left over up top. So don't worry if you can't get the entire thing in there. It's whatever. But nevertheless, you can use that, right? And since it's on a sampler, you can hit play. Nothing's gonna play. But if you go into the piano roll, right, I see these notes now. And now I have something to follow. I have a guideline to follow, you know? So now, whenever I make a melody, it's gonna sound good because it's within this scale. Obviously, that's just like basic and has nothing to do with anything. So that was just a weird melody. But, you know, you could play around with it. You can have fun. The creative possibilities are endless when you do this. All right. So now I want to cover a topic called numbers. So if we start on C, right, and we build out this scale right there, right? I'm not going to put I'm going to put the other C there. So there's numbers attached to the patterns, right, in scales. So C is going to be 1. D is going to be 2, E is going to be 3, F is going to be 4, G is going to be 5, A is going to be 6, and B is going to be 7. You're not going to say that C is 8 because, I mean, technically you could, but we're not. This is just the root note. So I would start considering the note that you choose, calling that the root note. So C is our root note. So we go C, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and back to root. These numbers are important. And the numbers are not locked to notes. So E is not always going to be 3. the way that you dictate the numbers depends on what scale you choose to play. Let's pick a random one. Let's go here. Right? So if we follow our method and make a major scale, right? We can go, all right, whole step. So I need that whole step. I need a half step. And a whole step. I need a whole step. I need a whole step. And then back to half. That sounds terrible when you play it together, but basically I just made a random scale, random major scale starting on D sharp. So D sharp, also known as E flat, is our root key here. So this would be 1, that would be 2, that would be 3, that would be 4, that would be 5, that would be 6, and that would be 7. Now, knowing the numbers in the scale is going to be important because it's going to help us build chords a lot quicker, a lot easier, and with more understanding of what we're doing with those chords, because there's going to be these terms called modifiers. They're not actually called modifiers, but I call them modifiers because they tell us what to do with that specific chord or that specific note in the chord. Oh yeah, I also forgot. I'm gonna show you guys the second way to make scales too. So we're just gonna go over back to the sampler. We're going to hit this little down arrow here. We're gonna go to helpers, right? And we're gonna go to scale highlighting. And then we can pick our root note. See how it's called root note? And then we're going to just pick let's do minor this time. So regular minor is called Aeolian. We're not gonna get into modes or anything like that. But regular minor in FL is labeled as minor natural Aeolian. So that's what you would click if you want a regular minor scale. So we're gonna click that. It's gonna take us to C. Now if you've seen the piano roll, you would have seen that it shifted. Basically what it did was it tells you what notes are and aren't in the scale. And that's determined by these lines that are highlighted and darkened. So if they're darkened, that means it doesn't belong in the scale. Like all these darkened ones, yeah, that's not the scale. If we start with C, you see how it's bright here, kind of bright here, bright here. It's bright here, bright there, bright there, bright there, and bright there. Now this isn't my favorite way because essentially it's the same thing as the ghost notes that I showed you earlier, except the ghost notes you can see it more clearly. These ones are kind of hard to see sometimes, so I don't know if you have bad eyes or something, you probably don't want to use this one, but that's just the second method. Now like I said earlier, scales are determined by like a pattern of frequency and other factors that's a little bit more complex, but it allows you to you can have different scales essentially. Things such as the Phrygian scale, obviously there's the Aeolian natural minor or whatever, but you can do like melodic minor, harmonic minor. There's all types of different scales that you can use, and obviously as we've seen some of them here, you know, there's a ton of them. You got Phrygian, like I just said, Mixolydian, Lydian, Locrian, you know, Dorian. If you want to know more about those, I could do a video on them later, but a good 95% of the music that you hear is either in a regular major scale, and or it's in a natural minor, also known as Aeolian, but minor is usually what it's just called. So major and minor is what most of the music that you hear, that's what key they're in. So I want to talk briefly a little bit about which ones, what is better to learn, whether learning scales on piano and or learning through computer technology hacks. Essentially, it doesn't matter which one that you choose in the grand scheme of things, because you're ultimately going to learn how to use whichever method you choose to the maximum potential. So you can draw in melodies easily, you know, you can make chords all day, and you can make a chord progression / melody just as realistic drawing them in as playing it, if you know how to do that. On the flip side, when you play a real piano, when you play a real instrument, there is a visual element that you gain, because now you can, as you're playing those chords, as you're running through licks and runs through the scales, you can see and like kind of feel and just come up with things on the spot. Whereas with the computer technology, you kind of have to click it in, listen to it, play with it, unless you just automatically know what it's going to sound like. But then that's when we start to getting at the fact that they're kind of the same thing. You just know your scales at that point. However, if I had to choose, I would personally recommend learning it on piano. If you're going to spend the same amount of time learning how to be a master of drawing in fire melodies if you have a piano at your disposal, you might as well learn that tool, because you're going to be able to come up with melodies a lot faster than you would drawing them in, and there's going to be the element of human to it. Also, when you draw in chords and stuff, there's that tendency to like make it kind of roboty. Even if you do like if you don't quantize and you do off grid, like drawing in the notes, there's still just an element of playing piano that you can get a lot quicker, a lot more efficiently, a lot more effectively than you could just drawing it in. But with that being said, that is scales. I'm glad that you stuck around to the end of this video. I can't wait to see you in the next one, where we take these concepts, we move on to the next one, and then at the end, we're going to throw everything together so we can start creating those super fire melodies. So if you like this video, make sure that you give this video a thumbs up. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. It's in a red box with like white lettering or something like that. You just want to do a little index curl with your finger. You're just going to want to smack that button for me. Make sure you leave a comment down below. If you like this video or have any questions, let me know. Let me know in the comment box below. It might be something worth making a video over, but I'm glad that you tuned in. And it's your boy Illsounz, and we out this jam. Bam.